You're all very welcome here today. So today is our week 4, final week of our alumni panel series, and it is on government, politics and public sector. So it was running from 3 o'clock to maybe 9:45 to 4 today. So before we begin, I'd like to introduce you to my colleague, Michelle Cohen, who, as you all know, is the Career and Skills Consultant for the College of Arts and Humanities. So Michelle will be today. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask our panelists, if you could please just add them into the Q&A or the chat, but ideally the Q&A so we can actually see that question coming through. So today I'm delighted to welcome 2 fantastic speakers joining us, and we have Sorcha Fitzpatrick and we have Robert Lahiff. So you're both very welcome, and I think probably just to begin, it might be a good idea I'll just introduce you briefly. So Sorcha graduated from UCD in 2017 with a BA in politics and history and international relations, and worked abroad and lived abroad for a while, and then returned and worked in communications and public affairs in the consultancy agency, and then began working as secretarial assistant in Leinster House before progressing to the current role of parliamentary assistant. So you're very welcome, Sorcha. And we also have Robert. So Robert graduated with a BA in economics, politics and Italian in 2011 from UCD. Now has been working also in politics for 10 years and also has a master's degree in political and public communications from DCU and also a diploma in public relations. Currently working with the Minister of State of Overseas and Development and Diaspora, Colin Brophy. So thank you so much for your time today, and you're both very welcome. And I know you're incredibly busy people, so we and all the students here are delighted that you joined us today. So I suppose just before we begin and go into the roles and what you're doing on a day-to-day and how you got there and how you transitioned from, I suppose, UCD or your master's and into your first role, I might just take you back firstly in relation to, I suppose, coming back into campus life and your experience of campus life and bring you back to UCD. So Sorcha, I might just start with you first, if that's okay, and maybe talk me through what you enjoyed about your degree before transitioning into that first role on graduation.
Well, I really loved my degree. It was great. I loved history in school and kind of decided to just study study a subject that I had a genuine, graw for. So I went in, decided politics went really well with that, and so studied the two. Because I loved the political history, like Irish political history and American history, and the kind of policy side of things. So yeah, I did the 3 years there, and loved it. Had a great time.
That's fantastic. And did you take part in any volunteering or anything like that while in UCD, Sorcha?
So I got involved with the UCD boat club with the rowing. So that's kind of, I balanced, that was my kind of balance between, college work, and then I'd be out on the water most days. And that's what I did then for 2 of the 3 years. I didn't do it for final year because it's quite a big commitment, but I was involved kind of on the sports side. In the clubs, yeah.
Perfect. It gets very busy in final year. I think all the students can appreciate that for sure. Thanks, Sorcha. And Robert, how did you decide, and why did you decide to study at UCD and study the degree?
Yeah, first of all, thanks very much for having me here. It's been a great opportunity. It's if nothing else, it's made me realize I need to update my LinkedIn page. So thank you for that. So what did I love about college? Really, the reason I mean, again, much like Sorcha, I had a fascinating interest in politics. I did economics as well with it. I thought they fit together well. The economics side, to be honest with you, thinking back now, I know very little about economics really, but the politics is something that really I was drawn to from a very early stage. So the thing that I found really the most interesting part about it was, and it's kind of nerdy to say, but actually the lectures themselves were fascinating. I really enjoyed the content of the lectures, you know, and if you break it down, it's a 12-week semester. You might only have 1 or 2 lectures a week. The topics are very detailed and quite heavy, and you learn an awful lot in the hour-long class. So I mean, that for me was actually the most interesting bit, the content within the lectures, things that you get exposed to which you just don't get exposed to in any other part of life, you know. In terms of societies, yeah, I mean, okay, I did them all, art, soc, and everything. Anything where there was a free drink, I think is generally what attracted me to most societies. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but that was the truth of it. For me, I think the special privilege for me anyway was to be able to do Italian as an elective. So I didn't do it as a major. It was only always as my elective. I think they called it a Horizon program or something. I don't know if they still call it that, but it was my 5 credits. So each semester I did Italian language, and as a result I got to go on Erasmus, which was just an incredible experience. I actually went on Erasmus through the Italian department, so it wasn't through economics or politics. It was actually through the Italian department itself. I think I was the first student to do that wasn't a student of Italian, didn't study Italian fully, so that was a great experience.
Fantastic, Robert. That's brilliant. I think you're right. I think in relation to what the students are doing on a day-to-day basis, it's a fantastic opportunity just to listen to your lectures and to keep up to date on everything. It's also an opportunity, we often say, to develop our network as well within our peers, and really our college peers and our lecturers and anybody that's actually in UCD can help us, I suppose, with our opportunities for on graduation. But also it's a great opportunity to, I suppose, keep up to date with what's going on in the world, I suppose, and domestically. And I think a lot of students would agree that the free pizzas and donuts will often appeal to many in relation to those societies. So in relation to your degree, I suppose, can you think perhaps maybe what skills you developed while you were at UCD that perhaps maybe that you're bringing with you, and perhaps that you've brought with you, I suppose, to your early roles, but also what you're using on a day-to-day basis today? Maybe Sorcha.
Yeah, honestly, I really like, it's a lot of the soft skills, as well as, like for like research skills, your analytical, your critical thinking, all that stuff is so important when you're in an industry where you kind of have to foresee potential things, or you have to you receive correspondence or policy documents or draft bills, motions, anything like that comes up from a parliamentary, in the Dáil or in the Seanad. Having that ability to critically analyze. Oh, sorry, I'm just on call.
Okay.
That's okay. Don't worry.
Sorry, everyone.
And also that's what happens when we're on interview as well. We always reassure students, going, "This is what happens. Don't worry. Just say just 1 second and back, and here we go. We continue. Yeah. Absolutely, no problem."
Sorry about that. But yeah, so I the written communications and as an arts grad, my whole college experience was essentially writing essays. So when you work for a politician, you do a lot of written communication, speech writing, all that stuff. And I found having that background of writing all the time and putting forward arguments and discussions for essays and exams, stuff like that, all that stuff was really helpful. And I still use all those skills to this day.
Absolutely. That is such a good point in relation to that written communication piece. I think when we're talking about communication skills, it's verbal communication skills, but it's that written communication skills that we are developing while at UCD with our essays and our referencing, our attention to detail, our grammar, etc. All of that is used perhaps maybe every day, I'd say, Sorcha, with you. Yeah, no, thanks so much, Robert.
No, I could not agree more with that. I mean, it was absolutely that ability to write and the academic sort of thinking and the way that you can't just say something and therefore it's true. You have to back it up, and you have to reference it. Even just the concept of doing that teaches you to critically think and to assess things, so that when you actually get into the world of work, you're not just winging it, that you actually have some substance behind what you say and why you say it, So I think that was a massive skill that I learned. So I completely agree with Sorcha on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose with the skills that you've developed and you're bringing to your current work, just maybe we'll just talk about work and transitioning to that first role, or your experience, your pathways. I know your pathways are somewhat similar, but it's slightly different. Sorcha, can you tell us a little bit about when you graduated from UCD, what was your next step from there?
So when I graduated, I kind of knew in my heart of hearts I didn't want to go directly into, the work life just yet. My degree had I didn't do an Erasmus, so it was only a 3-year degree. So I nearly felt that I had this like extra year of like that I could, world is my oyster kind of thing. So, but I also I really wanted to like learn a new skill. So I basically decided to moved to Madrid after I graduated in the September and to study Spanish. And then while I was there, I was a live-in au pair and English tutor for a Spanish family. So I did that for a year. Then I came back and started working in I was temping and just with a temping agency, but I knew that I needed something to help me get the foot in the door, because I knew I wanted to work in the kind of like policy, politics, public affairs kind of space, but I didn't know where to even start. So what I decided to do was email my local TD, which is who I work for now, but I suppose we'll get to that story. But yeah, so I emailed her and asked, could decided to volunteer my help for any kind of research projects, anything like that. Was really grateful. She took me up on my offer. So I did that for a couple of months, and then that kind of was really handy and really useful addition to my CV. Because up to that point in college, I'd always had a job, but it was always, in retail, hospitality, that kind of thing. I never had any kind of like office or any kind of those kind of other types of jobs. So then after doing that for a few months, and I was I was still working my other job, but I was applying for internships and kind of entry level like jobs, and interviewed and got a job as a public affairs intern in Hanover Communications, which is a public affairs and consultancy firm, which was amazing experience. So I kind of took the long way around to getting my like first proper job, but yeah, then I was an intern, and then they offered me a contract after that. So yeah, that's kind of how I managed to get my foot in the door, was essentially just through volunteering.
That's so absolutely. I think you said it, Sorcha. It's literally, I just volunteered. I just asked and I emailed and I said, can I do something for you? So we often say that to students as well. Don't kind of email in relation to, can you help me? It's like, I want to be able to help you. So if there's an opportunity there for me to volunteer, I think it's great. And students often send speculative CVs. So that's a CV or a cover letter or an application for a role that's not actually there. So how was your Spanish after the year, I'd say, Sorcha?
Yeah, it was decent. I am still trying to keep it up, but it's definitely the difference. Like it's hard to use it, and the saying, like, if you don't use it, you lose it. So still trying to keep it up, because I really wanted to. I love like the European Union, European affairs, and I felt it was really important as a native English speaker. Everyone else speaks 2 or 3 languages in the rest of Europe, and we're sometimes a bit behind on that. Robert probably feels the same. He did Italian, so I just felt that learning a language was kind of a perfect way to learn a new fun skill that could potentially, like, I haven't used it so much in my jobs thus far, but you never know in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. And it's great that you felt you had that year to do something. And not only you're able to travel, but you also developed a skill where you have it under your belt anyway. And it's just great that you can use it on a day to day. And just we'll go back definitely to that amazing first email that you sent, which has got to where you are at the moment. And it just shows as well developing that network early on. And Robert, over to you in relation to, I suppose, that stepping stone and after graduating.
Well, first thing I say is don't be like me. I did have quite good Italian and I did not use it and I did lose it. So my Italian now is appalling. So yeah, you do have to keep it up, and fair play to you, Sorcha, for doing it. So I had done, as I said, I did the Erasmus year. So I had done 4 years in UCD, effectively 1 year abroad. And then after that, I was faced with a choice, much like Sorcha, what did I want to do? And I decided I didn't really necessarily want to go into the world of work straight away. I wanted to do a master's. So I started looking around. Obviously, the natural one was a master's in politics, probably in UCD, which I was looking at. But I eventually settled on a similar kind of thing. It was it's kind of more of a communications element out in DCU, and that was something that interested me, because I kind of felt that the UCD one was very much focused on, well, okay, well, did I want to get into the world of research and policy development, or did I want to get into the world of academia? If so, that was the one for me. I said that wasn't necessarily the avenue I wanted to go down, so I went to DCU to do that master's. Got on very well, enjoyed it very much. Made a great network of people who were also sort of similar boat to me. There was a lot of mature students. There was very few that were kind of straight out of college like I was. That was a 1 year master's program. I got an internship then. I'm trying to remember how I got that internship. It seems so long ago. With the ISBCC, they were doing the children's rights referendum, which was many years ago now at this stage. And it was a case of just, the ISBCC were great charity, great organization, but they didn't have necessarily the political background and the campaigning kind of thing. So I said, look, I can see what I can do to help. So we went and we had great fun organizing a bus tour around the country and doing all sorts of things. But actually how I got into the politics side then was after my internship. I just finished my master's, and there was a mature student on my master's course who contacted me just out of the blue, who I'd been friendly with, who had said, look, my brother happens to be a government minister and it happens to be in your constituency and is looking for someone to start as a secretary assistant. Would you be interested? And I said, absolutely, I'd be interested. So that week, I think I went into the office and I started working for, it was a guy called Brian Hayes. Started working for him straight away. So that was again, it was all down to the networking that I had made in the master's program that got me that,
Absolutely. My gosh, you just don't know, really. You don't know who you're meeting and what opportunities can help you. And sometimes it's a great kind of idea maybe to think about who you do know and perhaps maybe how can these individuals help me. But you've both been very, I don't know if luck is the right word, but you definitely developed your network and reached out to your network as well, which is very important as well. Thank you both. I might just maybe hand over to see if there's any questions there coming through. Michelle, I see a few numbers and little queries.
Yeah, I think there's some interest, Sorcha, in just your experience of going abroad and studying. Somebody was asking just about studying a language in Spain, where, it wouldn't have been through UCD, but they were just asking a little bit about the maybe a course that you did or anything like that. And did you find it helpful, I suppose, working alongside and using the language? So there's just a little bit of interest in that experience.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd highly recommend it. It was a really great experience, and I made friends like all around the world that I'm, still in touch with and that I visit and keep in contact with. But yeah, so how I did it was I basically went over with the job as the au pair. I don't know if it's still in existence now, but there was a website called Au Pair World where you essentially make a profile of yourself, and then as an au pair, you can see the different families and the different, because you can do this anywhere. You can be an au pair anywhere in the world. But I knew I wanted to be in Spain, and I'm from Dublin, and I knew in my heart of hearts I didn't want to be really rural Spain either. So I kind of limited myself to some cities and found the family that I connected with. The family, you can do a Zoom call. You can, you talk with the kids, the parents. You really got to sense them. before you choose, because they obviously want to vet you out as well. It's kind of like a two-way process. So yeah, I did that, found a lovely family who lived in Madrid, moved over to them. I lived in their house with them. They had 2 kids that were 10 and 12 at the time. So I also didn't want really small kids. I didn't want to be like changing nappies or anything like that. But yeah, so I did that. And then while I was there, I sorted out going to a language school. So the way I decided to do it, and everyone kind of chooses their own way. Like I had friends who didn't opt to do this, but my focus was really to try and capitalize as much as possible on the fact that I'm that I wanted to learn Spanish. So I worked, I collected the kids from school and then worked in the evening. So I had during the day free. So I did something, I think it was like a 2-hour class from like 10 to 12 every day. And I did that Monday to Friday. And then and basically they do a language test. They see where you are at with your language, and they put you in a class and then kind of progress from there. But there's loads of them, like in any kind of place that, like the same way that there's loads of English language schools here, there's loads of English language schools there. So and all around. So it's just a case of figuring out like times, the location of the school, stuff like that. But you know, I got that sorted kind of in the first couple of weeks, and stuck to it. So yeah.
Brilliant, very good. That's I think there's just a few questions curious about that experience. So that's, I think you've captured that. So there's a question coming in about, I suppose, Robert's role now in the Department of Foreign Affairs and stuff. So I might hand back to you because you're probably going to cover that, Leona, and we can check in with questions then. Is that okay?
That's lovely. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks so much, Sorcha. I'm glad you answered that question because I was very interested in that area myself as well. So, and I'm sure a lot of students coming up to summertime as well, but not only for the next year. It's a great, and I think we spoke briefly before we logged in that it's a holiday, it's a job, it's learning a new language. It's just a great opportunity if you can get that semester or that few months or that year. Absolutely. For life, it's absolutely an opportunity for life that'll stay with you. So I suppose it's great, I suppose, looking now in relation to your education and kind of your first role and the opportunities that and how you got into your first role. So perhaps maybe, Robert, you might kind of let us kind of know what were your next steps, I suppose, after working with Minister Brian Hayes. What was the next steps from there to where you're currently working at the moment?
God, I went on a very circuitous route. Again, politics, it's all to do with networks. So I'm trying to think back now. So Brian got elected to the European Parliament, and I at the time didn't want to necessarily move to Brussels with him to continue working with him. So I was kind of half of the lookout, and I was actually at a going away party, would you believe, for Brian. I met Lucinda Creighton, who contacted me and said that she was setting up a new party and it was going to be all very interesting, and she was working in the opposition, and would I be interested in coming?
Oh, hi, Robert. I think we may have just lost you there. Can you hear me okay?
Sorry.
That's okay, Robert. I think I can't see your image, I think you're back.
Am I?
You're back in the room. We can hear you and see you. Yes, thank you.
Sorry, apologies.
Not at all. So yeah. You met at the going away party, or she's doing an interesting thing, setting up a new party, and I kind of asked her, look, we'll try it. Needless to say, that eventually became Renua, which was a whole different thing and a whole world of politics that I wasn't particularly comfortable with or enjoyed. So I did for about 11 months, I think I did it for. And I said, look, that's enough of that then. So I actually got out of politics then at that stage. After that, and I was kind of on the lookout for various different roles within public affairs, and I actually got a number of contracts working with a number of NGOs where I was sort of providing advocacy advice to them. So one of them, for example, was Scouting Ireland. I was doing budget briefings and budget submissions for them. I also got another contract with Vision Sports Ireland, which were an organisation that were promoting
sports for visually impaired people. So I was doing a lot of work with them in terms of they were hosting a large golfing event in Ireland that year. So I did some interesting things. All the while I was kind of starting that up, and I was enjoying it a bit. And then my current employer, Colin Brophy, got on to me. He was a councillor at the time, and he said, "Look, listen, that was about 6 months before the 2016 general election. Look, I'm looking to run for the general. I love some support, some help, and sort of running a campaign to help get me elected. Would you be interested?" I said, "Oh, I don't know. Wasn't sure if I want to get back into politics. Did I want to go back to Leinster House?" And I said, "Sure, go on, we'll see how it all goes out." And needless to say, he got elected, and he asked me, would you help set up the office? As he was his first time TD, he'd no sort of experience of engaging with the system of Leinster House and how it all worked. So help him set up the office, hire the staff, get everyone involved. I said, "Oh, look, we'll see where it goes." And that was 2016, and now I'm still working with him. So we got on very well, and we had a great time. So I worked with him as a parliamentary assistant in the last fall. And then obviously February 2020 election campaign happened, which was great fun. He got re-elected. He then got appointed as a minister by Micheál Martin. So that was July 2021. So since then, he has been appointed junior minister in the Department of Foreign Affairs with special responsibility for overseas development aid and also the Irish diaspora. So we work with Minister Simon Coveney and also Minister Thomas Byrne, who also works as a junior minister in foreign affairs on the EU side, EU affairs side. So that's where I am. That's what I'm doing now, working more in sort of an advisory capacity, and that's sort of in the parliamentary assistant capacity. It's an ever-changing environment, an ever-changing world. So it's kind of the career that can lead you anywhere. You can end up doing anything.
Wow, it's just such an interesting career path as well, Robert, kind of going into one area and then kind of going back, but also just even going back to that meeting with Lucinda and just having that opportunity, and all of this experience gets you and builds and it helps you build your skills and your experience to where you currently are at the moment, which is great. And it's also great to get in when you get in 2016, kind of the whole setup. It's really nice to get in at that stage. I'd say
my career, if you can put it in those terms, has been great fun and great experience. But one thing I will say is it's not a career in many ways, like a traditional career that many people would see that has a natural progression. A lot of it is down to the luck of the draw, being in the right place, the right time, meeting the right people, literally going to the right party on the right day. It can be as transient as that. So it is something to bear in mind if people are thinking about getting into the world of politics, that it is not necessarily always a very steady, stable place to be. You know, I've worked for opposition TDs, I've worked for government backbenchers, I've worked for government ministers. You know, I've kind of done it all in a very short space of time because of that transient nature of politics, that you don't always say this is a career for life and I can start at the bottom and I can work my way up to the Taoiseach. That's just not how it works. You know, it's a very, very different kind of job, career, should we say, if you know, career in a very loose sense. It's various jobs, I would argue.
Absolutely. And I suppose gaining all those different experiences, so it's not like a straight route, I suppose, for students to understand that, you know, to develop the network, to reach out and to use your network, but also, I suppose, to kind of build on those roles, but understand that perhaps maybe it could be a year here, it could be 4 years here, and just to kind of gain different experiences. So you could be in the world of politics, but doing totally different jobs for totally different people. I appreciate that. Thanks for that, Robert. So over to you, Sorcha. So in relation to, so after Spain and then Hanover for 10 months, and then
so basically I had done the internship and was offered a job, and so then I was working junior account executive. And I suppose to kind of talk about what Robert was just saying is that when you're in an agency, there is like that kind of like clear, you can go like intern, junior account exec, you can go like account manager, like there's a very kind of linear, upwardsy linear path that you can kind of take. And basically I was on that path, and the opportunity to Catherine Martin, who I work for, there was an opening in her office and I applied and went for it. got it. And then I was a case of this was kind of the end of 2019 when it was like every day, is the Dáil gonna dissolve? Like, as in, are they gonna call for an election? And that was a difficult decision to make, because I was leaving my stable job to go into something that was unstable, but also something that, you know, I really wanted to get the experience working in Leinster House. But yeah, so I accepted the job, and the day I was supposed to start was the day the Dáil was dissolved. So I literally went straight into election 2020 as which was I'm sure it was a bit. I would much prefer summer elections campaigns than being in the dead of winter. Some of the Dublin Rathdown constituency is up the mountains, and you know, it's long days working on campaigns, and you know, you're up like even the day that it was the election was announced, like we were out once we were able to, and putting up posters on polls, and you know, trying to get everything sorted. And it really is kind of all hands on deck. It takes over your life for the amount of time that it is. Because I think I forgot to mention, I actually, when I was working in Hanover, I volunteered in the 2019 local elections for a local councillor. And again, that was done kind of through networking. I met her through the party and stuff, and she was in my local area, and that was very much grassroots. It was a teeny campaign. It was nothing to the scale of like a general election campaign, but really learned so much, and she got her seat, which was great, in the local council. So I kind of had that experience in my back pocket. Went into GE 2020, which was like totally different kettle of fish. Like even like Catherine, she's deputy leader of the Green Party as well. So even just the high profileness and the massive amount of ground to cover was intense, but honestly really, really great experience. But yeah, so then that happened. She got re-elected, which is brilliant. And then we went straight. So I was like, brilliant, I have a job. Because one thing about this, what Robert was saying, is that like it's a series of jobs, and it definitely feels like that, because when you work for a TD or a senator, your contract is linked to however long that they are an elected representative. So if they lose the election, like you lose your job as an assistant. So that's kind of, it's a bit cutthroat in that way, but I mean, I suppose the TD has also lost their job as well. So it's kind of just the nature of things. But yeah, so went into kind of, so I was there as the secretarial assistant, which is the junior assistant role, because just in case anyone isn't aware, basically in a TD's office, there's two assistants usually, or two positions. You have the junior assistant, which is like this, it's called a secretarial assistant. It's an awful title. It's from back in the day when it used to be like a secretarial job. It's definitely way more than that. And then you also have the parliamentary assistant, which is the senior role. So yeah, I was a secretarial assistant all the way through like government talks, and then like the impact, like coronavirus, and everything has just been wild. But then Catherine was appointed minister in the July, so she's Minister for Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sport and Media. Bit of a mouthful, but really diverse sectors under her brief. And then a few months after that, I was promoted to parliamentary assistant, which is where I am now. So that's kind of the whistle-stop tour of how I got to where I am.
That's so interesting. I think I'm sure the students and everybody will agree, it's such a brave move to move from where you were into that other role. And I think you're aware that even the skills and the experience that you developed while working on a smaller campaign, you had that under your belt as well, that you're well able and helped you in the current role, or in 2019 when everything started again, and during those cold, very wintry months, I'm sure. And then COVID hit as well. So I'm sure a very unusual time, Sorcha, for sure there. So the roles that you're currently in now, and thanks, Sorcha, for kind of explaining I suppose, the secretarial position and the parliamentary and the differences between both. So I think students would like to see, I suppose, what you do on a day-to-day basis, perhaps maybe, and if you can maybe go through again, that's probably the skills and the duties, responsibilities that you do, because they may be familiar with your role slightly, but not 100% sure. So I know you've touched on it a bit. Would you be able to let us know just a little bit more?
Yep. Do you want me or Robert?
Yeah. Maybe Robert. Would we go back to Robert? Thanks. Yeah.
God, my role it's bit unusual at the moment. It's not a traditional parliamentary assistant. It's probably slightly different to Sorcha's insofar as focus traditionally in a parliamentary assistant role would be on the constituency side. Given my role and the fact that the minister is in the position he's in at the moment, where he's not actually, he doesn't. This is long and convoluted. Basically, the long and the short of it is he doesn't have advisors. Unlike Catherine Martin, because she's a senior cabinet minister, she has 2 advisors, policy advisors and media advisor. Minister Brophy doesn't have either of those positions, so I act in sort of acting up, if you will, in that capacity as an advisor for sort of doing both of those roles for him, which means that we have to get sort of additional staff in to support the work on the constituency side more. So a lot of my role would be on a day-to-day basis would be, approving press releases, working with officials in the department, meeting with sort of attending a lot of meetings with the minister, just sort of giving him a steer on where we're going. I mean, the Department of Foreign Affairs has a whole network of systems, so you kind of go, well, why do you need me? But it's to give that political eye over what we're doing and why we're doing it. A department could fill a diary from morning, noon to night with meetings and meeting requests and various different aspects. But I suppose the value that I add to the minister is that you can add a bit of a political structure to his working week, if you will, a reason why we're doing X, Y, and Z that has a little more focus, and linking it back into the Fine Gael party, linking it back into the broader government piece that isn't just sort of departmental focused. So that's the main role of what I do at the moment. But I might also still very much be involved on the constituency side, supporting the guys in the constituency office, doing stuff that I'm not sure Sorcha does. The day-to-day stuff that it takes an awful lot of effort and time to do, generating leaflets and organising public meetings and managing the correspondence that come through the office, and 101 different tasks. It's a very varied job. And one thing I will say about any career in politics is no 2 days are the same. And I know that's such a cliche and people say it all the time, but really, I mean, I could quite literally on any given day, I could be sitting in a greasy spoon restaurant in some part of the constituency with an old dear talking about potholes, and then 40 minutes later be addressing ambassadors and foreign affairs ministers from other countries about aid issues in sub-Saharan Africa, and then 40 minutes after that I could back talking about a medical card query. It could be anything and everything in between. So it is a very fun and entertaining place to work. Friends of mine also often joke about I wouldn't know what to do if I had a regular 9-to-5 job. It's not that kind of job. It's not one of those ones where it's not like a civil service job where you enter in and you have a start time, you have a finish time, you know where you're going, what the next career level step is. It doesn't work like that. It's a lot more sort of rough and ready, campaign focused, and it is, as Sorcha said, it is absolutely cutthroat. So if anybody is interested in getting into the world of politics, there's loads of different ways to do it, but you'd have to bear that in mind, that it's not a standard career, a traditional career. That's just within the confines of the Leinster House environment. There's plenty of other jobs that are in the sort of the broader political sphere, working in one of the PR agencies, for example, working in an advocacy group in an NGO. There's loads of sort of things that are linked to your skills in that sector, but not necessarily related to the Leinster House job. The only other thing I'd say, just if you are interested, networking is essential. Joining a political party, now it's not something I did, it sounds not necessarily something you did, Sorcha, initially, but it is absolutely one of the best ways to engage with your local people. Get involved in a campaign. If there's local elections coming up soon, get involved with someone who's doing it. Dropping leaflets, writing leaflets, finding out where to canvass, knocking on doors, doing all that sort of traditional stuff. It mightn't sound necessarily particularly fun, but that will give you a feel of what the job is like and if you like it or not. I thought there was a question about internships within Leinster House. Maybe Sorcha knows more about this than I do, but I know that there are very strict sort of rules. There are certain internship programs within the House of the Oireachtas that are supported by the House of the Oireachtas. They're very limited. I think the IPA run one. I think there's a master's course in DIT that I think has an internship in agreement with the House of the Oireachtas. But outside, there is some scope for an official Oireachtas programs for internships, but there is also there's always the informal method, which is come into the office and do a bit of something and we see what we can do, or come out and drop some leaflets, and next thing you know, all of a sudden there's a job vacancy because actually you proved yourself, you are of use. I think Sorcha was saying that earlier, be useful to somebody and they will reward you, but it is, sorry, that was very long-winded way to say what I do. So.
Absolutely. I think it was absolutely fantastic, and I think the varied role that it is, and such an interesting role, and changing from one thing to another in a matter of an hour in relation to what you're discussing. And also when we're talking about, I know earlier with Sorcha, we were talking about those skills that you're developing and communication skills. We would focus on that written communication skills, but obviously that verbal communication skills that you're developing on a day-to-day basis are very important, and obviously you use on every second of the day, both of you, I'm sure. Just before that, in relation to, thanks so much for mentioning getting into a political party, and also, as Sorcha mentioned, also in the smaller campaign, getting that experience as well. In relation to commercial awareness, and how would you keep up to date, or how would you advise students to keep up to date on, I suppose, what's happening domestically and globally?
Read the newspapers. It sounds simple, but genuinely, that's what
every day.
Yeah,
every day. Follow the stories. If you read them enough, if you follow the news, you realize there is only 5 or 6 different things going on at any one time that is being covered, and it's covered in the same way, slightly different ways across the entire spectrum of traditional media. So absolutely, just read everything, watch the news, listen to the program. Morning Ireland on Radio 1, as boring as it is and it sounds to people, it is essential listening. I'm sure Sorcha would agree. It is essential listening, and you can laugh at it as well, but often Joe Duffy can be essential listening, because what you're going to pick up and what's going on in Joe Duffy is going to be, I can guarantee you, what you're going to be dealing with in the evening in a constituency office. The phone calls will come in. I was just listening to Joe and he said this and I think it's a disgrace, and what are you doing about it? And it sounds simplistic, but it is. Just absorb media. Twitter is a great thing as well. Just take it all in as much as you can.
That's a good advice, and even podcasts. And so we have to get rid of our CDs, if they even exist anymore. I'm not too sure, but we just turn on our radio, put on, I'm not going to mention any radio programs, but we put on a radio program and just listen to what is actually happening out there. That's really helpful. Thanks, Robert. And Sorcha, over to you in relation to your day-to-day duties and responsibilities before we go into the Q&A, because I know we're pushing for time. Michelle has probably got a lot of questions there to ask.
Yeah, I will. I'll try and be brief. Basically, so I've kind of had 2 separate experiences on what my day-to-day is, because there is quite a significant difference on working in a backbencher or opposition TD's office versus a minister's office. So obviously, a minister's office, you have advisors and department officials and that kind of thing, whereas for when I was Catherine was well, there was no government, but the de facto government that was continuing through coronavirus, she was in opposition in the last all. So in that sense, essays and PAs, so the SA would, well, I suppose this is still the same, they would be kind of the first port of call on the inbox and on phones, organizing the various emails that come in, meeting requests, people looking for assistance, looking for representation for, medical card, housing, council houses, passport queries, anything like that, you name it. And I would recommend, if anyone does have any, do contact your local TD, because genuinely there are specific contact points that are given to Oireachtas members to help you with issues. So just as an aside, but then and then kind of for in an opposition office or backbencher, you know, you'd be writing Dáil speeches, motions, kind of potentially if your member is, you know, working on a bill, you work on that. Committees, loads of committee work, so you get massive policy experience and legislative experience, if that's something you're interested in. And then I suppose on the ministerial side, it's a bit different because you aren't really writing, you are a member of government. So when you're in opposition, everything is towards the government, but when you're the government, like, you just kind of have to like listen, and you're not like a member of a committee, like you attend the committee as when you're invited. So I suppose now I still would write speeches in her capacity in her leadership position in the party, or anything like kind of that would be separate from her departmental work, because then those speeches would be written or like drafted by her advisors, people in the department, that kind of thing. So I draft them. Now it's a very it always is, the PA role is very project management based. You really are juggling many balls at once in the air all the time. Like, it's very dynamic, very fast paced. So you know, like kind of similar to what Robert said, like no day is the same, every day is different. You could be on the phone with someone trying to help them with a query. The next you could be organizing the launch of, or like organizing the launch of something, or, you know, I would have an impact in my role in, you know, various media and press statements, stuff like that, just from kind of a green perspective. Then also like constituency literature. So the moment I'm finalizing a newsletter for Catherine's constituency, which is kind of like that's a project, and you have to organize, you know, the leaflet drops, you have to organize, like, time it all so that you have it designed and printed, and then can get it to the people who are the distributors and all of that. You would organize like constituency clinics where you they've mostly been on Zoom for the past 2 years, but we're going back into the constituency, meeting people in person, which is lovely. But organizing those, you know, public meetings, that kind of thing. It kind of is like, and also like she gets like TDs and ministers especially get loads of invites to everything. So, you know, I would be in contact with, if someone wants her to attend, you know, a local opening of a sports pitch or a school or anything like that, raising a green flag, all that stuff. I would kind of be the point of contact for that, organize, you know, when, where, look at their diary, liaise with the department on availability in the diary, because that's another thing. You're kind of like, because they have very limited time, obviously we all do, but especially ministers, so it can feel like a bit of a battle sometimes, being like, no, we're gonna get this, she needs to do this, or she really wants to do this. So yeah, it's very like all-encompassing. I know it sounds like I covered a lot, but genuinely that's because it is a lot. But you kind of just have it all in your head, and but wow, like it is great. It's really good fun. You meet great people, you know, and you really feel like you're helping people as well, which is what I like, you know. So yeah,
absolutely busy and varied, but also helping people. It's great also for you all to be going back to that face-to-face piece as well, and meeting everybody. And Zoom can be quite helpful as well, I know, and it's great that the opportunity was there still to meet with students or to meet with people, but now face-to-face is great as well. I never actually really considered that, Sorcha, when you're putting a newsletter together, that it's not just you're just putting the content together, you're organizing the drop, you're organizing when, who's going to drop, etc. Unbelievable. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Michelle, over to you. I know this is for the students, and I'm sure there are many questions coming through. Yeah,
thanks. No, it's been so interesting to listen to you both. Both roles sound so fulfilling. Well, let's see. So, Sorcha, is a move from secretariat assistant to parliamentary assistant based on experience, or is there additional qualifications required?
No, to be honest, like, experience on the job is what it is. Like, To be like, for example, myself, and because a lot of the time the SA would move up into the PA if the PA role became available, just because you know, they're familiar with the office, familiar with the member, know how it all works just by working there, and kind of move up into that. But to be honest, it's the experience in the job that really stands to you. And the thing as well is that, like, they're direct appointments by the, like, for your member, like for your TD or senator. So there's no like it's like every single politician is different on how they do it, and some might choose to, you know, bring in an external person or whatever. So there isn't, it's hard again because you can't, it's very much like take different people doing different things. There's no kind of one way. You kind of have to just try your best, put yourself out there, do your best, and you know, prove as Robert said, prove your worth, prove your usefulness.
Very good, excellent. And Robert, what do you love about the role, and maybe one challenge?
I love the diversity of it. I really do. You know, it's not. I think he's I mean, we're both basically, we're doing the same roles with the same pay, but completely different jobs in a completely different environments. You know, it is that diverse, and that would be replicated across all parties, all members. You know, it really does depend on where you go and what you get. It's a very strange career, and you know, it is a career, I suppose, but I suppose it's not a traditional career. So I mean, that's the great fun of it, and that's something that I really enjoy out of it. Challenge is the relentlessness of it. It can be a lot of time, you know, and if something boils over on a Sunday evening and something explodes on Twitter on a Sunday evening, you have to deal with it. It's not something that you can't just, I'll leave it till Monday morning, because you could have no job in the morning. Monday morning, the TD could be gone, out of the seat. So you kind of have to watch it constantly. You have to monitor, you know. So it can be a lot, full on. But at the same time, you know, you have to also get on with the person that you work with. You know, I think that's a key factor, that you have to have a good work relationship, because it's like no other job. It's got a level of intensity to it that is hard to find anywhere else, you know.
Yeah.
It's fun though. It is fun.
Yeah,
I don't want to make it sound like it's not, because I really do enjoy it. You know, it's a great job.
Oh, no, definitely that comes across. Like you both mentioned fun in your description, so that's very good. And Sorcha, yourself, what you enjoy, and a challenge. I think you touched on a challenge you mentioned previously. If you want to take us through that.
Yeah, so I kind of, to myself and Robert, we're kind of repeating ourselves, because I suppose it is you have to kind of be a certain type of person to work in these jobs, and you have to really enjoy, it sounds weird, but you have to really enjoy how like stressful and intense it is, because it can be really, really, like, not to I don't like, there's no point in sugarcoating it. Like, it's every day is different, and you know, you could it's like you could think to yourself on a Monday, God, this week doesn't look too bad, and then literally by Tuesday it's like you're looking at a totally different week to what you initially planned. But I really like the dynamic and the kind of fast-paced changing. You don't know what's going to come, but that's kind of that's it. Like, you don't know what's going to come, and then you just kind of have to proactively kind of react, or you know, there's various different things you can do. Like I'm a self-confessed like political nerd, so I love working kind of in the heart of Irish politics, and it's been an amazing experience over the last 2 years, given everything that's going on as well. So I would recommend it from that point of view, and you really learn, like, you think, like, I, like, you know, have my degree is in politics, but like being in Leinster House, in department buildings, like really seeing like exactly how legislation is passed, how committees work, how the Dáil works, how government actually works, how bills and that, like how it all, like, that's invaluable experience really. And then you also, you feel like you're making a difference. Like when someone rings you and like, you know, is in crisis, and you actually can help them. It's really great. And I really like that aspect of it as well. But I suppose challenge wise, as the SA and the PA, you tend to be kind of the first protocol in terms of receiving correspondence, and like I suppose I'll say it, but it doesn't really need to be said that like politicians get a serious amount of abuse and trolling and all of that. So especially in the SA role, you are like your job, you get up in the morning and you open up the inbox and you sort it out, and like obviously I see it as the PA, like Catherine sees it as it's her inbox, but you really are the kind of you see it first, and I think and not many people realize that it is just someone like you know, a TD is human, and so are their assistants, and even though like that, like you know, kind of hate and all of that can be, it's not directly it's not like directed at me as a person, but you still have to read it, still have to kind of take it, still have to deal with it, and kind of you work so closely with your member that like it's not like a normal working relationship, because it isn't a 9 to 5. Can't just clock off and be like, right, I'll see, oh, it's Friday 5 o'clock, I'll see you at 9 on Monday. Like it's not really that kind of job. So yeah, I would say that like, because it kind of it's not every day, it's not all the time, it's not incessant, it kind of goes up and down depending on like if the public is unhappy about something, you're going to know about it, because people will contact their TDs, which I would recommend that you do, because then like we'll be like, right, this is clearly a big issue, we've got like, or we'll be like, we need to, you know, like it helps in like, because we all read the newspaper, we are, you know, on top of what's going on, but when people also like can bring other stuff to your attention, like but yeah, so it would be that can be difficult to try and just navigate around and learn to deal with, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sorcha. Thanks so much, Michelle. And thanks, students. Really good questions there. So absolutely, I think being able to communicate and having to be able to, you know, you mentioned before for Catherine, when in relation to the amount of invites that people get, that it's important to be able to say in a nice way, no, unfortunately we can't, and obviously communicate back to those emails perhaps that you're not too happy to receive either. And so there's a bit of responsibility there. But to be honest, I think you've sold politics and the role in the career, even though I don't know if both of you would say it's a career, but I would definitely think it's a career. You've both sold it to me in relation to the varied jobs and what you do on a day-to-day basis. It sounds such fun. And as Michelle had mentioned, you both said it's fun, it's exciting, it's varied. It's not 9 to 5. But I think if students are aware of all of this, that it's not 9 to 5, and just to get that experience and to start working on a small campaign, join a political party, put yourself out there, you know, encourage conversations within your network, will all help to get them to where you are today. So